One more thing before I start talking about some stuff. I want to share you guys this cool experience that I've been kind of having within this last week or so. And I kind of want to keep the music up. Yeah, we'll keep the music up for a little bit. But then we'll get into our serious conversation talk, because we got something that's really important. And I think a lot of people can take something from this, because let's be real. I'll wait until after. Until after I tell you the story. So anyway, this story is really, really cool. My dad sends me, I think about a week or two ago, right? I want to say a week ago, just because I think it was. He sends me a Bible plan, right? And it talks about Nehemiah, right? And if you know who Nehemiah is, he's a guy who's building a wall in Jerusalem, I think. And I don't think he's like the grand popular story of people like David and Goliath or Jesus or trying to think of who else, Noah's Ark, stuff like that. It's not like, he's not the forefront kind of the guy, but it was a really cool thing to kind of read a little bit of this Bible plan about. Apparently my dad told me that he built the wall, or he helped build the wall, because he had a project to build the wall. He helped build this wall in 52 days. And I was like, dude, that's sick. That's my number, right? So it's really cool. What's even crazier, right, is even in conversations I have had within the last week have included Nehemiah in them, right? And I'm just like, what the heck? Most of the time I was bringing them up, but still, it was cool to have conversations that included Nehemiah. And then, no joke, like I mentioned, I gave my book, the book back to my pastor after for so long of having it for since February. I got this new book, right? Holy Ambition. The irony of holy ambition with the hole in it. I think that's hilarious. I need a picture of that. Thumbnail picture. Oh, that's so weird. That's so weird. All right, but that's good. That's good. I'm keeping that. I mean, let me marker that. All right, there we go. All right. What's cool about holy ambition is in the intro, you see him talking, or you see him, he's talking about the book, right? And he mentions that Nehemiah is like a sole base of this book. And I'm just like, what the heck? Nehemiah has been brought up so many times this week to me, and I don't know why. It's so cool though. And so I just wanted to just share that as there is some symbolistic thing going on with Nehemiah and me for some reason, right? Now, it could be the 52. I think it's the 52. I think that's what started it. I think God's got a good sense of humor with connections, but it's just so cool to see these crazy connections, right? Of my dad sends me something of Nehemiah, of a Bible plan, and my pastor doesn't know about it, and my pastor gives me a book randomly. He's like, you know what? I think you'd like Holy Ambition. He gives that to me. And it's mentioning Nehemiah, like the whole book's based off Nehemiah. And I'm just like, what the heck? That's just so cool. Thank you for the 52, by the way, Slayer. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to share, was that this was super fun. It was wild. Wait, we can zoom in on this real quick. Look at that. Look at the holes. Bro, look at the hole in the holy. What in the world? All right. So basically, yeah, I like that. That's funny. That's funny. I'm going to make that a reoccurring joke, by the way, so thank you, Slayer, for finding that humor in that. I think that's hilarious, because it literally is a whole holy ambition. All right, so anyway, I'm going to take this out. No, wait, no, I need to go back here. Hold on, I forgot. The reason I had the pin here is because I need to talk about comparison. So, I want to start off with this. I think this is a good strong hitter with what we're talking about today. Hold on, let me turn off the music. Okay, the energy is going rad, but we gotta dial back the energy. Man, that hits. That's kind of hard. I kind of really like just having that high energy craziness. My heart just pounding for it. Now it's not. But all right, since we have what we needed here, since I kind of gave you all the week that I've had so far, I don't think there's anything else that I've been straight up yes, this is what we need. But I want to talk to you about comparison, right? Believe it or not, and I know you will be lying to me if you don't say this, we have compared ourselves with other people before in our lives in some form of a fashion, whether it be complaining or being better than somebody else, right? Comparison can go both ways, and it needs to kind of have a balance of don't compare yourself, Comparison can create massive problems within your life, with it, whatever it is, whatever it may be, I've seen quite a few people going through this, and it's a normal thing to go through. I mean, we're all human. We all want something in our lives. And so guess what? When we see someone with the thing that we want in our lives, guess what? Comparison happens. It happens all the time. So trust me, don't freak out. You're not the only human being who's, struggling with comparison, who compares yourself. So that doesn't mean you're going to burn, right? I know I'm burning because I have a fire behind me. But listen. All right. Jokes aside, in reality, we all compare at some point. You're not sinning, right? Necessarily, I guess. I guess it depends on how you compare, right? God doesn't look down upon you and think you're some horrible thing just because you compare. There are some comparisons that are good, believe it or not. Very few, but there are some comparisons that are good. There are a lot of comparisons that are bad, right? Now, it's good to compare things to understand, okay, maybe what has the better option? What has the, what's the better example sometimes? Sometimes those comparisons are good. We're not going to go super deep into good comparisons. We're going to talk about the bad ones because believe it or not, there's a lot more bad comparisons than good comparisons. There's a lot more bad ones. Listen, and the bad comparisons really affect us and how we look at ourselves, right? I think it's really important. I guess the sin would be coveting. Yeah, I got you. Well, coveting. I don't know what coveting means. I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that I'd like, oh, wait, hold on. My bitrate dropped again. All right, my bitrate should be back now. Sorry about that. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I know it's a fancy word. I'm just not sure exactly what coveting is exactly. I'm guessing that means like, yeah, I don't know exactly. It could be, that could be a sin, I guess. I just don't know what coveting means. Maybe I should ask Alexa. What does coveting mean? Alexa, what does coveting mean? All right, hold on. Alexa, stop, please. Thank you. All right. Let's see. When you see someone with something you want and say, I wish I had that. Oh, that's coveting. Okay, I got you. In a form, that could be like, and that could lead to jealousy too. I guess that could be an example. There's a lot of different things that could build into it that could lead to a sinful attitude. However, at the core, it's not good, right? Regardless, it's not good, but at the core, it's not like you're obviously having a massive problem, but it's important to watch before it turns into that, It's against the 10 Commandments. Okay, I got you. So it's a form of jealousy, basically. It's like envious. It's like you're wanting something that somebody else has, and it creates a bad atmosphere within you. So that's a good example then. If your comparison gets too far within that atmosphere, it could lead to something like envious or jealousy, stuff like that. And that's not good for your heart. Now, granted, right, we're all human, right? So just to clarify, there have probably been times where you saw when you were a kid or when you are right now, you see somebody with something you want and you're like, why in the world does someone like that get the thing that I want when I'm a better person? When I do this better, when I do this better? Or it's a different question. Why does someone who is this bad of a person get these good things? Right? And all of these questions come into the mind, right? Now, I'm not saying these are healthy mindsets by any means, These are normal questions, but sometimes they can lead to unhealthy mindsets. So it's very important to distinguish the difference between them. I wanted to drop this intro thing first. Also, thank you for sharing that, Slayer, by the way, because I was very clueless, but I appreciate it. What do you call it? I wanted to talk about this introduction first, right? Because oftentimes I feel like when we think of God, right, we see all these other people, right? We see all these other people living these different lives, and we compare our lives to them, right? And I kind of wanted to read this introduction first. I did share it throughout every Discord in existence, so you probably already read it. If you didn't read it through those Discords, well, you're in for a majestic treat. This is some really cool stuff. This was in the introduction of this book, and it made me like, whoa, I'm more comfortable reading this book, It made me like, I like to get a good feel of how a book is when I start reading it. And this, for example, did a good example of, yes, this is a good book I need to read because the person who wrote this or has the mentality behind this is a decent person. Like they're not seeing themselves as higher than thou, So I wanted to read this for you homies because I think this is really cool, and I'll mention the different things we can compare ourselves with in just a second, but I wanted to read this introduction, or at least a part of the introduction, He says it right here, literally in like the third paragraph of the introduction. He says, "It's not because I'm something special or have some insight that no one else has, but because it's true and it's from God's word. And what he's done in my life and countless others, he wants to do in yours. If the truth in this book, which he's just talking about the book here, but I just want to just kind of give an example of like, let me just read, because I'm going to be like, I'm going to read this and then you guys can take take from this. If the truth in this book becomes the tool in your life that it has been in mine, it will show you that you can be a difference maker. You can actually be a tool in the hands of the eternal God of the universe to make an impact on your world. God can and will use you to accomplish his purpose in ways that will shock and delight you. Put simply, you can be a difference maker. You may think making a difference is for extraordinary people. You may think that a life of adventure and excitement and being greatly used by God is for people who are smarter, more gifted, and know much more than you. The matter of the fact is that's simply not true. One of the greatest myths propagated in the church today is that God only uses superstars. And that's a big thing. Not Superstar from Five Nights at Freddy's, right? You get what I mean, though. I think that was kind of a random joke, but I hope someone got that and thought that was funny. But you see that right there? I just like when I saw that, I was like, bro, this book's good, right? And I really like that. So, and this is just the introduction for it, but I'm not going to read the whole thing about it. But I really wanted to read this intro because it talks about comparison. We can sometimes compare ourselves to these superstars that we see, right? These people who can talk so eloquently, these people who can do things right, Maybe it's a streamer you're watching. Ding, ding. I'm just saying, I know I'm a streamer, but in reality, that could be a thing. You may watch another streamer who's either a Christian or just someone that does something better than you. And you just might look at that and start comparing yourself. And so that's just an example of like, I just wanted to say from this is an example of God doesn't just use superstar people and that's just it, right? In my opinion, this is how I see it, right? Moses wasn't a superstar person, right? He was a very quiet, very anxious guy. Why me guy? He's like, you could choose all these other people. Why me? That's how Moses was. And I was just like, that's a good example of like God really uses people who feel this way about themselves, because it's like, God uses what seems foolish in the world, but in reality, he makes people who feel low or are low, or maybe just ordinary people, and takes them and turns them into better things. And I just think that's such a cool thing. So I'm going to read this extra thing here. My pastor also highlighted a lot in this, so I'll try my best to read it, but what do you call it? It's really cool that he highlighted some of this stuff. No one comes out and says it, but it's what we all assume. We think God is going to use the bright, highly gifted, unique, and extraordinary individuals. But even a casual glance at the characters of the Bible reveals this to be a lie. Because we tend to talk about our heroes in Scripture in superficial ways, we make them bigger than life. We make them extra special, extraordinary. But the fact is, God has chosen very regular, ordinary, common people, just like you and me, to accomplish the biggest events in all of human history. He used a teenage girl to bring his son into this planet. He used a blue-collar worker to raise him from childhood and teach him about a life of integrity and worship. He used common fishermen to lay the foundation for the greatest revolution that has ever touched the world. And God wants to use you, and God wants to use me in the same ways. I just really like that. I just think that's really cool. And so I'm not going to, most of this just talks about, this book, that. So I'm going to skip a couple of that. But I really like this. It's like, it's about moving beyond what the Christian subculture tells us is right and holy and acceptable. It's about the truth we've lost, that God of the universe, or that the God of the universe is actually looking for ordinary people like you and me to accomplish things beyond our wildest dreams. It's about holy ambition. What God is seeking, what he's looking for, are not the brightest and the best. God is looking for people who are willing to live on the edge, people who long to have a life of significance and impact, people who are willing to believe what God has said is true and will step out in tiny incremental steps as God leads. That's very important, is to look at that right there. incremental steps. There's little steps in our lives that help us move forward. We don't have to make these giant leaps. Sometimes in our lives, we compare our lives to other people who take these giant leaps and they succeed. And that's cool that they succeed in that stuff, right? But sometimes when people take these giant leaps, they don't know how to react in the environment that they're in when they take this giant leap, right? And that's why I think it's important to also value these little steps that you take, because guess what? God can build you up in a stronger foundation, moving you slowly forward than sometimes yeeting you across the field, Sometimes people get yeeted across the field, let's just be real. But that's within their own purpose. Sometimes we have a different purpose. And I think that's just really cool to look at. So I just wanted to say that that's important to look at too, is that, you don't need these big stuff. Sometimes it's incremental steps that you can really be used to impact other people or even yourself. God can really turn you around. And I think it's so cool. Let's see. People who will let God breathe into them dreams that can change the world. People who so long to see God's agenda fulfilled in this fallen world that they attempt what seems impossible, ridiculous, and even outside the box for God's glory. People with holy ambition. Now, lest you get the wrong idea, it's not about becoming visible, famous, or necessarily being in the limelight. Some of the greatest men and women of God will never be known this side of eternity. They've worked behind the scenes. They've done things that only God knows about, but they've been used to transform their world. So it's not about what other people think, and that's important too. It's not about what other people think. It's about being fully supported by an all-powerful, all-knowing God who will do in and through you exceedingly abundantly beyond your wildest imagination. It's about living on the edge. It's about an adventure of faith, breaking through the sludge and stagnation that characterizes so much of the Christian faith in our day. It's about holy ambition. So I know that's that's the introduction to the book basically, but I just wanted to share that because oftentimes when we have our life, by the way, I'm done with this book at the moment. In our lives, we compare ourselves to the superstars. Let's just be real, right? We compare ourselves to superstars. Excuse me. Whether it's music making, you might look at yourself and be like, well, I'm a Christian music artist. Maybe you're not even a Christian, right? Maybe you're just somebody who, what do you call it? Who is an artist in general with music. And, you look at how big other people are and you're like, man, I wish I could do that. But in reality, you have to take these little steps. The more you compare yourself like that, the more it'll mess you up. If you're a Christian artist, you may look at Toby Mac and you're like, bro, this dude's like platinum and stuff. What the crud? I'm going to be like him. And it's like, that's cool to be inspired by that. But what do you call it? But we compare ourselves to superstar people like that. And I just wanted to say that, it's very important to know where you are comparing yourself to. What are you comparing yourself to? I think that's a good question to ask right now, whether you're watching the VOD or you're just here listening, or if I just put this on YouTube or something. Who or what are you comparing yourself with, right? There are different things, right? There are different ways to compare too. And I think that's really important to understand that. I want to read some scripture because that would be really cool. Also, it's really hot in here, homies. I'm not going to lie. I'm burning up. It's probably, I don't know if it's that light. It's the sun. It's the sun. No, it's the fire next to me. Sorry about that. Let me see. Where is this at? There's Romans. There's a Romans 1, and then there's a 1 Corinthians. Okay. So I want to read these things. The homie Paul, by the way, is writing these. I think he wrote Romans. I'm sure he did. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he did, but not exactly. I'm not sure. But basically, Paul wrote a big chunk of what I'm about to read here, right? And I think it's really important to understand. I'll compare things. I will say what I'm going to say after I read this because I think these are important scriptures. So this one I'm reading the NIV version of. So I'm reading two different versions, just letting y'all know. So I'm reading the NIV. I am reading this here is Romans 12, 6 to 8. And this says, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. So like there's an example of like we all have different gifts, you know? And I think that's really important. Honestly, I'm going to lurk. Let me know if you start echoes of the die, of the I die, or the I. Thank you. I appreciate it, homie. I appreciate you, Lunar. Thank you for the lurk as well. And don't worry, I'll probably scream at the top of my lungs if you'd like. Excuse me. But also thank you for welcoming in Lunar as well, Slayer. But as you could tell within that scripture right there, right? You know, we all have different gifts as people, you know? And even if you're not a Christian, I feel like you could take a lot from this, right? Whoever may be listening to this, is that we all have different things about ourselves. We have things that we are great at, and we have things that we just ultimately are terrible at, right? My bit rate is dropping like a mad lad. Hold on just a second. Why is my bit rate so bad right now? My bit rate is omega cheese. All right, my bit rate's back, homies. I don't know what happened right there. What do you call it? I think I'm going to, I had a stream open, so I think that might help my bitrate a lot. We'll just have to see. My bitrate dropped again. That's okay. It's okay, homies. It's okay. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. All right, my bitrate should be back now. All right, hopefully. But what I was saying, though, is also for anyone confused with bitrate or doesn't know what bitrate is and stuff like that, it basically just means that, like, my upload speed keeps kind of, like, tanking sometimes, so on the stream, so... for anybody watching in like VOD and stuff or a video if I put this on YouTube. What I'm saying is we all have different things that we're good at. We all have different things that we're bad at. And it's important to know that, you know? You're not supposed to be good at everything. If you were good at everything, we wouldn't need, you wouldn't need anybody. You wouldn't need anything in your life, you know? And that's what's important to know is that, like, we all have different things. While I may be exceedingly good at being positive, for example, you know, I get how that feels, right? Of where, like, you know, you may be someone who's not positive and you're like, man, how is someone able to be so positive about a lot of different things in life, right? Be able to have a happy heart about different things. That's just something that I'm gifted with. That's something that I'm better, I wouldn't say better at, but I'm better at than most because that's one of my gifts is that something where I can still keep an upbeat atmosphere within how I talk or just how I think or within my heart, you know? And you know, that's one of the gifts I have in my life is that's one of those things. Now, it doesn't make me better than anybody. Far from it, you know. Let's be real. Sometimes when I talk, I don't make sense. Sometimes I speak incoherently. Sometimes I think incoherently. You know, there's a lot of things, you know. There's a lot of things that happen that go inside my mind. And there's a lot of things when I see other people good at, I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. Time management. I suck at that. I see a lot of people, by the way, that have crazy good time management, and they're like crazy cool at it. They know exactly what needs to be done and when to do it. And I'm like, huh? Like, how do you do that? You know, those are things that I don't have. And it's really cool to see that in other people. But if we're not careful, we'll compare ourselves. We'll go like, you know, we'll freak the crowd out, you know, or we'll be like, we'll think that we're lesser just because someone has something that we want. And that's not the case. You know, we're all different. We all have different holes inside our bodies. I guess I don't know why I worded it like that. We all have different pits and different like shortcomings. I think that's a good way of saying it. We all have different shortcomings in our lives. We all have different weaknesses. And I think when we see people with strengths, we automatically compare our strengths to theirs, or not even our strengths to theirs. We compare our weakness to their strengths, and it makes it to where we just look at ourselves lesser. And I think it's important to look at it at a different limelight. You know, there are things that you're good at that, you know, other people aren't good at. But it's important to look at that, not to make you conceited, right? That's why what I'm about to talk about is really important too about what I'm going to say. Let's see. Let's see. I'm very good at anticipating failure. Oh, is this what's happening? Are you anticipating my bit rate? Is that what's going on? I got you. You're good, Lunar. Let's see. I buffered, but I'm probably behind a bit more. You might be, but that's okay, homie. No problem. Here's the thing. It takes a little while for me to read some messages too sometimes. So, what do you call it? So it's totally understandable. I did buffer a couple of times, so you might be a little bit more behind than, than intended, you know. What do you call it? One thing I do compare myself a lot to is my bit rate, to other people. So, excuse me. If Batman has taught me anything, is that time management is a superpower. I agree with that. It is. It is. The clock ticking literally just walks into the clock ticking just literally walks into a bank, leaves with money, and no one ever no one or camera sees him. Okay, I got you. You're right though. You're right. The clock king. I like that. Thank you, Lunar. I appreciate it. Also, thank you for your lurk. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's like that's exactly like that's the kind of things we face, you know. And it may not be certain things about somebody that are like their character. I often feel like a lot of the times there are people who compare their character, right? You compare your character and you feel, man, you know, this person has an upbeat personality that I wish I had, or this person has energy that I wish I had. But in reality, you know, that person who has that upbeat energy or personality or a lot more energy, right? They might be thinking the same thing about you. You know, they might be thinking, hey, man, I wish I could have that time management. I wish I could have that thing that they're good at. You know, you may be good at building Legos. I know it's a random thing, but you may be good at building Legos, crazy contraption things. And people go, wow, I wish I could do that, you know? But oftentimes we get hooked on our problems. We get hooked on our weaknesses and we think, man, I wish I could do this, but then we ignore our strengths. And that's why there's a bad thing of comparison, right? There's a lot of bad on comparison. There are two very big, important, bad comparisons, right? There is the comparison that I'm not as good as somebody, and there's the comparison that I am better than somebody, right? These are both terrible comparisons, right? And they are the ones that practically rule this world, right? Is the I am worse than somebody or I'm better than somebody, right? So it's important to look at things like that, right? One of the things that gets hard within life is it's hard not to compare yourself. So I'm not saying it's easy, far from it. You know, yes, it's easy to talk about, but it's harder to do. Like it's going to be real, right? You know, a lot of the times is that when I say some things, some people they say, well, Derpy, it's not that easy, and it's like, well, I know it's not that easy, you know. But it's that simple, right? Oftentimes the things in our lives are truly simple. They are truly simple to understand. They're just really hard to implement, right? And that's just reality, right? There's a lot of things that are pretty easy. You know, we could sit here and say, get a better relationship with God. I think every Christian's like, yeah, I want that. That's pretty simple and understandable. But it's harder to do. It's harder to do. It's not a hard thing to do. But it's harder to do the more as you go because, you know, it's real deal stuff. You've got life everywhere, you know? There's a lot of different things, you know? It's a lot easier said than done. You know, it's almost like telling a guy who's been addicted to something for 10 years, hey, just stop, you know? It's like, it's not that easy, you know? It's not, you can't just tell him just stop. You know, if just stop works, cool, power to you. But for the most part, that doesn't work. And so it's like, you know, it takes time. I think it takes time, especially when your mind is habited to comparing yourself. I've seen a lot of comparison lately. It's not like, you know, it's not like a bad thing. It's not like, oh, snap, you know. Well, I mean, I guess it is a bad thing in general, but I've seen comparison from other people and different things, and it kind of just moved my heart to talk about it. Now, granted, that doesn't mean I'm going to be like, oh, you compared yourself, I'm gonna beat you up. No, that's not how it is. So also, I need some water. Hold on. Oh, excuse me. But comparing can really kill your spirit. It can really kill things about you. Your outlook on yourself personally. Hold on a second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is comparing in either way can really kill you, you know, kill your outlook on yourself, stuff like that. And it's important to know that like, you know, we have some good things that are good about us, right? And sometimes it takes time to find things. Oftentimes people feel like, oh, well, Derpy, you know, or whoever's talking, right? I don't have anything good about me. And in reality, that's not true. You know, you just probably haven't found it yet or found something that you're just inspired. You feel really heart pounded towards, right? And I think that's just important to realize that, like, no, it's like, you know, there's people who are 70 years old who are finding out things that they like, you know, because they try them for the first time. You know, I encourage that. If you ever feel like there's nothing you like or anything like that, and try new things, constantly try, you know, try new things out there. You don't know what's going to happen for you, you know, believe it or not, right? I was very picky with food. I know it sounds funny and random to bring up, but it's true. I was so picky with food. The moment I tried chicken Alfredo, I think a few years ago, my freaking taste buds exploded. And it was wild because I was like, wow, you know, a whole world opened up for me when I tried something that I didn't do for the first time. And I feel like that just explains that helps things even when it comes to things you like, you know. There was things like I went through a lot of things I didn't that I'd liked or thought I'd liked throughout like my younger life, you know, where I was like, well, I'm saying younger life, I'm actually still young, but still, I went through like baseball. I went through space stuff that I liked. You know, I still like space. There's some things that keep latched onto you, but like I went through baseball. I went through saxophone. I played the saxophone a lot. I went through like piano. I was learning through like there was a lot. I was trying to remember some other things. There was a marching band thing I attempted to. I gave up and I said it's not for me. There's just a lot of different things that I tried to go through. You know, even my little brother, he's 13. He's going to be 13 soon. And I see him try all these new different things because it's like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I agree. Trying new things is awesome, you know? And you know, I don't see that as when he's trying all these different things as he's just trying to go with the flow of life. No, he's trying to find the things that he really likes. You know, my little brother, he went from like Taekwondo to building different things. He had a little pet salamander. It was really cool. I don't know why I'm saying this. I just want to talk about it. And then he would move up to like, you know, trying to play the saxophone. And then he was like, you know what? I think I like the bass guitar. And he was trying different things of that. And he starts playing bass and stuff and he really likes it. And he's going through video editing and stuff like that, you know? And, you know, I like this because too, it's not like, you know, he doesn't look at himself and think, oh, I'm really bad. I'm like, you know, all these other people edit more than me, you know? No, he sits there and learns. And, you know, I think that's really important to grow different things in your life, you know? If you feel like you don't have anything to offer the world or just within yourself, keep looking. You'll find something that really booms your heart. We all have different hearts. And I think that's just a thing that we just forget sometimes. Sometimes when we're thinking about ourselves, and let's be real, we're human. We think about ourselves quite often, you know. I'll be honest, I think about myself a lot. Not in a conceited way, in a way of like, you know, hey, am I doing things right? What's going on? What's doing that? You know, sometimes I do compare myself and it's not a good idea. And it's just like, you know, it's important to understand that like we all have different things. You know, it may be a job somebody has, you know, man, this person's got a better job than I do. I hate my job, you know, stuff like that. It may, or this person has a better lifestyle than I do, you know, they don't even have a job and they're happier than I am. You know, there's a lot of different things. Could be a marriage thing. Man, this marriage seems really happy, but mine, I hate this one. You know, there's a lot of different things that we can compare ourselves with. Here's a big one too. Well, I don't know if it's a big one, but here's a big one that I find that I feel like a lot of people on the internet probably find as well. You know, there's people my age are getting married, you know, which I don't know if that's healthy. I don't know. I mean, if they want to, they want to, but like, you know, I'm 24. I still don't have a girlfriend. You know, that doesn't mean that like, you know, that doesn't mean bad things are just going to happen to me for the rest of my life. But in reality, though, when we see other people having that happiness, right, we compare ourselves within that, you know, as a guy on the internet, you know, I would say guy on the internet mainly, but like, you know, when you see other people having that, you know, when you see your friends on Facebook, I don't go on Facebook a lot anymore, but I did before in the past. And you'd see all these people, right? You know, we're lovey-dovey, we're getting married, all this stuff. And you're like, man, what the crud? You know, you're like, you know, then you'll think, what am I doing wrong? Stuff like that. And, you know, it's just all these different things come up at us. You know, sometimes people will think maybe they're too old now, you know, that they didn't have, you know, they've lost their prime time or something like that. That was funny. I was talking with a friend about a prime time. That was funny earlier, but in reality, right. They, you know, people feel that like, it's gone, you know, like these opportunities are gone now because they see other people with it. And you're like, man, it's already gone for me. In reality, you know, I know this is a little bit different. I'm kind of throwing a bunch of different things together. Sorry about that. You're never too old to start changing, right? You're never too old to like something new. You know, you're never too young to start something new. And by the way, there's proof. My little brother, he's not even 13 yet. He's almost 13. And he's gone through so many different things to learn different stuff, to find the things that he likes. That's an inspiration to me. I don't know if he's going to watch this or not, but if you're watching this, hey, I appreciate you, homie. His name's Matthew, by the way. He's really cool. And like, he goes through and does this stuff. Now, I think that's really cool to look at, because not only do I have an example of like, someone who's young, who's like 13, and is able to like, or not 13, but about to be 13 in my family, where he's like going through these different things. He's trying these different things out. And, he's not letting his age block him. Like, he's not letting his age say, oh, well, I'm too young to try these new things out. I think it's cool. He's trying these new things out. He's trying to find what he likes in life. And, you're never too young or too old to start that. And a big thing, too, is I watched a streamer named Hungrybox. And he talked about, he brought up a thing that really stuck with me. Now, granted, I don't struggle with this, but I thought it was such a good thing for people who do struggle with this, because I'm not old enough to struggle with it yet. Not making fun of anyone who's older, but like Hungrybox literally said, which I thought was really cool. And I don't watch him a whole lot, but the one time I watched him was when he won. I think he won like a Steam or a stream show, basically, right? Also, welcome back, Hunter. He won like a stream show or something like that, and he was so excited. He had his. Oh, I heard you. So I thought that was in my earphones for a second. He won, and I think it was either his mom or his wife, I can't remember, came in and gave him a cake and like put cake in his face, and they put cake. They were celebrating, and what he was saying, because like I don't know how old he was. Whole story is really inspirational. Cool. Nice. I actually don't know his whole story. I got to go check that out. I didn't see like the whole thing of his story, but I love what he shared. I don't know if he shares this on his streams or not currently. He shared this one thing about winning a stream competition thing, and he said you're never too old to start something. And I was like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. I'm not saying I have friends that currently struggle with that, but to me, I feel like there could be people who struggle with that. And he said you're never too old to start something, right? And he mentioned that like the guy who made 5 Hour Energy started that business, I think, when he was like 55 or 58, something like that, late 50s for sure, right? And that's when he started his life, or he got that business started. And I thought that was really cool. Now, granted, not saying 5 Hour Energy is crazy good or not, but a guy who made 5 Hour Energy, which is a guy who is living successful, made that at 55 or 50, late 50s, right? And I just think that's really important to know that, like, don't compare yourself with age. I think that's another thing, too. We compare ourselves because of our age. In reality, just because you're young, old, somewhere in between that, I don't know, bold, yold, I don't know, excuse me. I just, like, coughed up some, like, air. But in reality, yeah, we compare ourselves with these things sometimes, and it's important to know that, like, hey, that your age shouldn't block you from stuff like that, and I do need to check out his story. I think that sounds really cool if it's really inspirational. That does sound awesome. Here, I'm going to add that to my notes. Well, not my notes, but my things to check out later kind of the deal. Hold on. But thank you for saying that, though, Hunter. I really appreciate it. That's an example of what I was talking about. Is like our age could be a thing that does that too. So I know I went on a big tangent about it, but in reality, that is true. Our age can be something we compare ourselves to. And we let our age dictate. Oh, someone's better than me because of their age, anything like that. And that's not the case. Granted. I will say this, and this is just one little point that I want to make within this. Age does come with wisdom if you're willing to learn, right? Sometimes, wisdom doesn't come with age depending on the lifestyle you're living, right? A lot of the times people think that just because someone is older, it means they're more wise. In reality, that could be the case. It just depends on what kind of person they are, right? Sometimes people can live for a long time and still not be wise, Granted, that is not something you should compare yourself about. But I just wanted to say that that's an example, too. It's like, God picks people at different times in their lives to have an understanding within their life. So it's important to just kind of understand that and not let that mentality block you. Oftentimes when you hear that mentality, people are being prideful. They're like, oh, well, just because of my age, I'm better than you. Or just because of my age, I can move more or something like that. There's a lot of different things. I know more than you, or I'm able to do more than you. A lot of these different things you can get hooked up on. Hold on a second. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that real quick for comparison. There's more scripture I want to read too. Hold on a second. It's about spiritual gifts, and I think that's really important. I want to read this whole chapter, but I don't think we're going to read the whole chapter. Actually, we'll read this whole chapter. It doesn't seem very long, but I want to read the first part and then we'll go on the next part, right? So the first part is in 1 Corinthians 12. So I'm going to put that in here. I'm reading the ESV version for this one. But 1 Corinthians 12 is what I'm reading out of here. And I think it's really cool because when we compare ourselves, this is a thing that we kind of compare ourselves on, whether it be gifts or different people. And this is what it says. Now, concerning spiritual gifts, brothers, I do not want you to be uniformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were led astray to mute idols. However, you were led. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one is speaking in the Spirit of God ever says Jesus is accursed. And no one can say Jesus is Lord except in the Holy Spirit. Now, there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And I think that's important to just take it right there. There are varieties of gifts that people can have, but at the end of the day, it's still the same Spirit, stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. And there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. I love that too. And there are a variety of activities, but it is the same God who empowers them all and everyone, right? And I think that's just so cool to look at. We all have these different things about ourselves. And we're all different. We all kind of fill in for each other. Believe it or not, we as people are like fingers, right? This is the weirdest connection I'm saying to you, homies, but we're like fingers. And so we fill it or we could say we're hands, I guess, in a way. But we are like people and we need gaps to fill in. And so we kind of need people to kind of make us whole as people. We need people who fall and who fill us in the places that we fall short, I think that's really important. This is such a weird analogy, we need people though that connect us like that. That's how things are important because we're not perfect. No one person can know or do everything all by themselves. It's not possible. Let me see. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. For one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to the other the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit. To another gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another the working of miracles. To another prophecy. To another the ability to distinguish between spirits. To another various kinds of tongues. To another the interpretation of tongues. All these are empowered by the one and the same Spirit, who apportions to each one individually as he wills. And I think that's a really cool thing to think about. Oftentimes I feel like we look at that and we're like, oh, crud, what are my gifts, right? What are my gifts? What am I good at? And that stuff takes a while to find out within our own lives. What are we good at? What are we good at as people? We like to compare ourselves with a lot of things that happen with other people. And we oftentimes think that, oh, well, this person has this gift, what do you call it? Let me try and do that myself, which is nothing wrong with that. I think it's good to find things in your life that you're good at, right? And it takes time, maybe sometimes it's asking feedback. Honestly, I know this is I know I'm talking about gifts, but let's be real. I like talking about gifts and it can kind of be in comparison, but we're going to go on a tangent on gifts, right? If you're struggling with finding out a gift that you have in your life, ask people about it. Ask people that you talk to maybe on a regular basis or sometimes just around and ask, hey, what do you think is a gift of mine? What do you think is good about me? Now, granted, that doesn't mean every time someone tells you something, it's true. But in reality, it's good to get feedback and see what works for you. What do people thank you for sometimes? Sometimes people thank you for something about you, that you do that just, that helps them. Sometimes I get thanked for different things in my life. Oftentimes I get thanked for just being there to listen. Sometimes it's just listening, and it's crazy because sometimes you can be a good listener. Sometimes you can be a person that's just, being able to speak the things at the right time. Sometimes you're able to just be someone who's always there to help. There's always these different things that you can be. And, when you look at that and see, okay, what are people thinking in this aspect of me, in a way that helps you grow and find your strengths. That's a good way to find out what your gifts are within people. So people can also help you find that too. and also what helps you be fulfilled, you know? And I just thought that was really cool to talk about. Oh, my bitrate dropped again. Sorry, homies. Hold on. All right, we're back. All right, so I want to continue reading as well about this one. This one here I think is really cool about comparison to ourselves with others. And I just want to kind of talk about this as I read this. And this will probably be the last scripture thing I read. I'm not exactly sure. We're just going to have to see if we're going to have to see maybe. Also, I do apologize if some of you are experiencing some lag. My internet is wonderful. By wonderful, I mean it's not, you know. It keeps randomly dropping, you know. Let's see. I've asked my family and a few friends a few times, and they've all highlighted my off-the-cuff humor and knowledge of obscure facts. So that's cool. Which has primarily inspired me to pursue VTube. And cool. And, you know, I think that's pretty cool, you know, and that's a cool thing to think about, you know, off the cuff humor and stuff like that. If people like your humor, you know, people like the things that you know like that, that's very inspiring. Not only is it inspiring, it's really cool to know about. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a good feedback, honestly. That's really cool. I think that's awesome. I like it. And I think that's a really cool thing too, that your family is able to give you an honest feedback like that. They give you some good things about you that like they really like, you know, and that's where you can find strengths in too. You can be like, you know that your humor is something that people really like. Your obscure facts, which are really cool. I've seen some of your facts too, and they are pretty cool. I think that's pretty rad. So I think that's pretty cool. That's a cool thing to explore too, about like, you know, maybe if you feel like in life, you know, with comparison, or if you're comparing things, you know, that's something that's a strength that maybe some people may look at and go, hey, I want something like that, you know? And so there's just stuff like that that's like really cool. Though I wouldn't say really cool with the comparison part, but in reality, when we compare, we sometimes lose vision of stuff like that, you know? And it's important to keep our minds fixed on that. Not to the point to where we compare ourselves and think that we're better than somebody else, because that's the other side of comparison too, by the way, is like, you know, we have the comparison of, I wish I was this person. And then there's the other comparison of, I'm better than this person, right? Both comparisons suck, right? So it's very important that you stay in the middle and don't compare at all. And I think it's really cool. So oh wait, no, I'll talk. I'm jumping into 500 different subjects at once. Okay. But it's really cool. It's really rad. I think it's really cool. But yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. I think that's an awesome thing to share. What do you call it? And I hope the pursuing VTubing thing goes out really rad for you too, homie. I think that's awesome. Let's see. All right, we're going to read this body thing and then we're done. All right. Well, not done, because I still got more to talk about with comparison, but we're done with scripture basically. This is 1 Corinthians 12 verse 12 through 20 through 30 actually. So we're going to talk a teensy bit. This says, for just as the body is one and has many members, and all members of the body, though many, are one, so it is with Christ. For in one spirit we were all baptized into one body. Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, we are all made to drink of one spirit. And I think that's so cool, man. I love the comparison that makes here. Well, not comparison, right? But like the differentiation, right? You got free and slaves, you got Greeks and Jews, and then you've got what was the other one? Sorry, oh man, I feel bad. And you've got no, that was it. But like it shows you an example of like, regardless of where you come from, where you're at, you know, God still loves you, you know, where you came from. Oftentimes I feel like people who come from these broke down places, they feel like, man, God can't use me. I'm not in a cool place. I'm not a good part of my life. And the reality, he still can, you know. And some people may feel like God doesn't love me. I'm a terrible person. He still loves you, you know. You know, he sees the you that you don't see. And I think that's really important for anybody, right? Is that at the moment, yeah, it's so hard to see. Like, it's so hard to see, hey, you know, God, why in the world am I going through this crud, right? But in reality, later on, God's like, I'm putting you through this because I know what you're going to be in the future. And that's exactly what I want you to get through this, you know? Not that I enjoy putting you through this, far from it, you know? I don't think God enjoys having us homies go through the crud we have to go through in our lives. But he knows what we're going to be in the future. He knows, he's like, bro, what you're going to do in the future is so worth all the stuff you're going through. And I just think that's such a cool thing. And, it's like, and if anyone ever has that problem of comparison, know that Jesus, in the Bible, he ended up like, what do you call it? He ended up coming from like a poor place, very not royalty at all, like not like the world standard of royalty. He came from a shepherd, I think, if anything, a shepherd and a young woman, right? And it was just like, he came from this like small area of life and then moved on up into something great because God did something through him, So God uses people, and God uses even Jesus himself, if anyone who should be royalty. Oh, okay, yeah, Joseph probably was a carpenter. I'm sorry. I butchered that so bad. I think I confused him with like, did I confuse him with the other Joseph? I know there's another Joseph. It might have been the other Joseph, because there's another Joseph that I think might have been a shepherd, but I don't remember. No, I might have confused him with David. I don't know. I'm sorry. But basically what I mean is Joseph. That's what I mean. is his dad Joseph. But yeah, you might be right. You might be right, homie. I'm a little bit lost on that part. But thank you. I appreciate it. I said thanks as well. I'm getting close to actual. Oh, cool. Makes me scared and excited. That's awesome. I will say I get the scared. Well, after the scared, as you move forward within things that make you uncomfortable, it makes it easier and easier after a while. What do you call it? It took me a few years even on, like, I used to record by myself on YouTube and just record my voice and stuff. It was so awkward for me at start, and that's what helped make it easier for me on streaming, but it takes time to build up that stuff. So I totally get that, the scared stuff, but hey, you're going to do awesome, homie. It's going to be just take some time to learn. And then the more you learn, the better you get. That's the way I see it, homie. So that's awesome. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's just really cool though, to compare that though, or to not to compare that, but to say that is to say, hey, Jesus was someone who, is the Son of God, right? You would expect this man to be a majestic royalty man that just comes flying in with gold everywhere and just like chucking it everywhere. But in reality, he wasn't that. He was a guy who, I don't even know if I don't know exactly what, I can't really tell you because I wasn't around those times, but, from what the Bible says about him, he was just a guy who, got brought up from God, God made a big thing through him, just through regular, ordinary situations, right? He didn't come up in a gigantic kingdom, He didn't come up in a castle. He didn't just open the doors and go, voila, I am some big freak. Oh, I don't know why I said big freak. I am some big, important named person. No, he was literally, if anything, if you could imagine someone poor in a crowd and still helping people, moving them through what they needed to go through, not attracting so much attention to himself, not wanting to. And I just think that's just really cool. So yeah, I just really like that. It was really cool to just think about that. So if you ever feel like you're just like, you're not worth it, you are. I mean, in all honesty, for anybody who felt like that was a thing. I know I went on a giant tangent with that. All right, anyway, we'll continue. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And I think that's important too, just to think of that right there, right? Just because you compare yourself to somebody and say, man, if I had this, if I was a part of this, it doesn't make you not a part of the body or a lesser part of the body. And I think that's such a cool way that this says this. It literally, like when Paul wrote this, he basically said, just because you say something like that does not mean that God's just going to chop you right off and just be like, I don't know, I don't like you, stuff like that, It's important to look at that. And I love that right there. That verse in particular is verse 15. Let me see. 1 Corinthians verse 15. Hold on. Let me just do this. 1 Corinthians 12 verse 15. If you want to look at that, if any of y'all want to look at that majestic verse, I think that's really cool. But yeah, even if you say that, it doesn't make you a lesser part of the body. What you speak of like this, it doesn't make you lesser, but your perception of self would be lesser. Let's see. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would make it any less, that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. And I just really like that. I really like that as well. You know, I think if we get into our minds, right, that if everybody just wants to be a superstar, guess what? Then no one's special. No one has a purpose, right? Nobody has a certain function that is important to moving things forward within your life or just the body of Christ. You know, I just think that's such a cool way of looking at it. Personally, is just like, not only did he say through this, hey, you know what? You saying this does not make you any less bad, right? Because someone else does something that you don't do. But at the same time, you know, if everybody were this, there would be no point in everybody else's job. And I thought that was really cool looking in that. So I like that. And I like this too. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body seem to be weaker, are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the great honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer. If one member is honored, all rejoice together, you know? I really love that. Let me see. It's like when two anime characters get super powerful / big, they're still at equal power levels, so nothing really changes. A bunch of collateral damage and yeah, exactly. You know, I think that's a cool, funny example. You know, I know it's a goofy example and it sounds kind of goofy, but I like it though. It's like, you know, not only that, I think in that time when you compare yourself to these like power levels, let's say you're someone comparing yourself that are like, you know, you've got strengths and someone else has strengths. You're comparing yourself, right? And you have this like comparison fight, right? You get a collateral damage almost, you know, within your life. Your perception of yourself changes. You might think of yourself as higher than somebody else or lesser than somebody else. And so, yeah, that's the collateral damage I feel. So, yeah, that's a really good example. Thank you for sharing that, homie. I like that. But yeah, that's a good example about comparison in our lives. And I'll read this one last thing, and then we'll get into talking about some other majestic stuff within this. Let's see. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, helping, administrating, and various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire. Do all interpret? And then it says, but earnestly desire the higher gifts. And I will show you a still more excellent way. I don't know what that fully says. Maybe I'll have to look at this. And this just talks about love. So what's really cool is that jumps right into love, right? Which I'm not going to jump into that, but I just wanted to give an example of like, you know, how he's like, is everybody a teacher? Is everybody a prophet? No, there is something good about you that is important, like that God has put into you, that he says, hey, this is something you're going to be able to do. And no one else is going to be able to do that. So I just wanted to just kind of say that, you know, that's very important to know. So I kind of got done reading all that, but I just thought that was really important to kind of just, you know, talk about that comparison, about how like, you know, we can compare ourselves and then blammo kablamo, you know, we end up seeing ourselves in different limelights, you know. Bad comparison is basically this, right? Comparing yourself with somebody else, and and you end up wanting something that they want, right? You're like, man, I wish I could do this. Granted, there's nothing wrong with working towards something like that. However, we're all built in different ways. So obviously, I might have something that you don't have. You might have something that I don't have, and someone from Zimbabwe is going to have something that you don't have, you know, and all these different things, right? But in reality, we're all made up of many different things, right? We may like a lot of things, but we don't like everything. You know, we don't like every single thing somebody else likes. And so I think that's really cool. We're all unique in different ways, but we have gifts that fill in the gaps. Like I mentioned this Wednesday, you know, we are in a way gap fillers, right? We fill the gaps that other people have in their lives, and they fill our gaps in a way, you know, in a non-weird looking way of that, I guess. But that's the way I like to see that, is gap filling. You know, God made us to fill in the gaps for other people because we're imperfect. We're not perfect. We're not able to do things, you know? So yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah. If you ever feel like comparing yourself, remember that you have high qualities about yourself, whoever you are. If you haven't found them yet, continue to look for them. You'll find it at some point. You will. You're never too old, never too young. It's really important to look at that. The other way of comparing yourself is thinking yourself is better. That's prideful. Now this is one that I feel like we can still fall into, right? You know, yes, we can fall into the one of, hey, you know, this person's got better things than I do. They're better than me, right? Or we fall into this thing of, I'm better than this person because I act better, you know? That's a sense of pride, and we don't need that. You know, you don't need that in your life because it messes you up. That makes you feel like you are higher than somebody else. And that gives, and by the way, in the Bible, it even mentions this too, haughty eyes, which I know haughty sounds kind of odd. I'll even type out the word haughty real quick. This is what haughty means. Haughty is basically like, in a way, you're looking down on somebody because of whatever it is, right? You know, in a way, you look at somebody maybe for their sin. You know, honestly, this is a good example. Maybe you see Christians that, people who call themselves Christians. I guess I should lay this limelight down. This is me being real. I'm not trying to start a fight with anybody. People who call themselves Christians and wave their signs saying people are going to burn because of that. That's haughty eyes. They are looking down on other people because of their sins. Instead of showing the love of God to other people, they'd rather show the wrath of God. And in reality, you know, they don't have the wrath of God on their side. So in reality, it's like a counterproductive thing, you know. While I think it's okay to go with thinking of the way of the Bible, right? I think it's terrible that some people do that, where they do have a haughty eyes. And we're all human, by the way. I don't encourage any hate towards these people. If anything, I would encourage that maybe they need a real love. They need to really see, hey, God's not like that, you know? And it's just really important. So a lot of the times what keeps people away from God is people with haughty eyes. Let's be real, right? People who compare themselves with other people and want something that other people have. In reality, what do you call it? They probably don't really deter from God a whole lot to other people, but people with the eyes of pride and they look down on other people. Those are the people that usually end up making other people not want to be anywhere near God because they see that as their reflection, right? And by reflection, I mean, they think that's God, but in reality, that's not God, you know? See, man, it's hot here. It got to 100. Dang, dude, I'm sorry, homie. That does sound pretty hot. Hi there, Rooster. How you doing today? I had to go walk because I had a brown out and couldn't turn on any AC. Oh, dang. I don't know what a brownout is, but I'm sorry you got that, homie. Oh, yo, what's up, Natrix? How you doing today, homie? Dude, we're talking about some comparison stuff today. Also, Rooster and Natrix, welcome in. We're actually talking about some comparison stuff about comparing ourselves. But yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, usually that's the thing that deters people from, like, you know, from God, is that when people have the haughty eyes. So by haughty, I mean H-A-U-G-H-T, by the way, for you homies who are here. That means prideful eyes, where they're thinking that they're better than somebody else, right? And so I think it's really important to kind of just have that understanding of, if you compare yourself to other people thinking you're higher than somebody else, in reality, you're not doing yourself a favor. You're putting yourself in a bad spot, you know? Let's see. Gonna lurk while I put my dog out and get ready for bed. Have a good night. No problem, Hunter. I appreciate you, homie. I hope you have a good night as well. And thank you for the stuff you talked about today. I really appreciate it, homie. Let's see. Comparison is the thief of joy, period. Yeah, I agree. when you start comparing, you're not going to have fun. That's the best thing I can say. At least there are some comparison that is okay, right? But it's strictly small. Like, this is the here, I'm not trying to do a gotcha on y'all. I promise. I'm just going to do an okay sign, okay? but this is the circle, right? I did a gotcha. I'm sorry. But like, this is the circle, right? This is like the circle of the good things about comparison. And then this here, actually, wait, hold on. This here is like the whole freaking like, bad comparison stuff. The good comparison is very small, and it's this, right? The good comparison is this. Comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, right? You can compare yourself to you, because guess what? You look back at what you used to be and you're like, whoa, you're like, wow, I came from a lot of crud back then, comparing yourself from yesterday is very important so you can see where you came from. That's a good way of doing comparison. Another good way I feel too is to, dang it, there was another one. To weigh an option, right? You're like, okay, well, maybe this one's better, maybe this one's not better, But the worst ones, like I'd mentioned a little bit ago, are the I'm better than you comparison and the I wish I was this good comparison, And the big one I think it gets people a lot is the I wish I was good I wish that I was this good comparison, right? But as I've said before a little bit ago, as well as that, like, we all have different things about ourselves. God gave us different gifts in our lives, and we need to make sure that, one, we can find these gifts, and two, to not let our other gifts, not let our other gifts basically like make us become prideful or, okay, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I feel bad, homies. But let's see. Bro, I was talking to some of those well-meaning but horrible approaches at San Diego Comic-Con. The fellows with yellow and black signs yelling at people on attendance, telling them they were literally going to hell for attending the convention. I tried to reason with them gently, but they just continued yelling at me and condemning away. Yeah, and we'll have people like that, right? That's a good example of people who fall into that I'm better than you comparison. Usually, is that sometimes people. Now, I'm not saying that we should hate anybody like this. I'm not saying I'm not saying anyone's saying this, but I think it's really important because it's very easy to not like people like that. What's important is to be able to still try to reach out in a loving way, which I think that was really cool. You try to reason with them gently. But yeah, there's a lot of people like that. And that's what comparison can do to you. Having pride like that, having a prideful atmosphere where you think you're better than somebody else, or you want to be the judge, jury, and executioner, basically, and tell people where they're going. In reality, it's not our job to tell people where they're going in that aspect. It's about helping people get to where they should be, and, that's just a good example of people have the wrong idea, There's a lot of different things within our lives that can contribute to that kind of behavior. And honestly, I don't have the answers for it, but the best reaction to people like that is to just try to be as loving as possible, never stoop down on their level, and just to be able to, try to show them what Jesus did for other people, It's like a modern day Pharisee in a way, and it's very important that we know we got to move forward within our lives. I'll be honest with you, I've been called a demon in my chat before. It was kind of wild. I'm not gonna lie. I hope that person's okay, but I don't hate them. I tried to talk very loving to them, but it was just because I was being honest about my sin. What do you call it? Someone asked me if do you sin? And I said, yes, I do sin actually. And they straight up were saying sinnings of the devil and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, I don't indulge in sin. But then they started started yelling and stuff like that. No, well, not yelling, but they started saying stuff constantly, and I timed them out, and then they left. But yeah, we'll face a lot of people like that in our lives. It's very important to try to be as loving as possible to them. But anyway, kind of to go back with comparison, the comparison atmosphere is it kills us. Regardless of what it is, it kills your spirit. If you look and I'm just going to be real with you, right? Sometimes we compare ourselves with other people who are Christian, right? Who have these different things about each other and stuff like that. One thing, what do you call it? I don't want to necessarily say he's a pastor, but he's I would say he's a pastor. At least, God's using him for a strong ministry. Someone at my church had spoken about spiritual comparison, right? Where it's like, man, you look at what someone's doing for God, and you're like, man, they're doing something really good for God, And he'd opened up about talking about how like he had always thought about a guy that he saw walking around him or walking near him, or just not near him, but obviously someone who is kind of around him a lot. And he's like, man, I wish I could have something like that he does, that he's able to do stuff like that, right? And he came up and he was just like, at one point he was talking about comparison to him, I think at some point. And the conversation got up to him. He's like, man, I wish I had that. And he goes, no way. He goes, I wish I had something that you had too. And then it's like their whole minds went wild over it, And I just think that's an important thing to look at too. I don't know if I said this earlier, but I want to say it anyway, just in case. Oftentimes when we compare ourselves with other people, whether it be like, hobbies like art, music, streaming, I guess you could say, sports, any of these things, weightlifting, body, anything of that, right? We end up comparing ourselves in a bad limelight. But in reality, sometimes when you're comparing yourself to other people, we often forget that other people may be looking at you, right? You in particular, when you're comparing yourself to these people, they may look at you and are comparing themselves to you, They may want something that you have, and you just have no idea. And I think it's a very good eye-opener when you have an experience like that, when someone comes up to you and says, wow, I really like what you do. I wish I had that, I've had somebody tell me before, and it kind of hurt my heart a bit, but it wasn't like they weren't telling me in a mean way. Far from it. They were really nice, and it was really cool. But they had told me in quote, like they said, I wish I could speak as eloquently as you could. And while I think they meant that as a compliment, to me, I took that as you're looking at yourself in a darker, not a darker light, but like in a lesser light, And I don't remember what I said. I don't want to say what I said, but in reality, this is what I would say now if I remember what I said before, is that in reality, God gives us different things in our lives to be great at, To be real with you, homies. In the past, I didn't talk like the way that I talk now. I didn't. I was shy and everything. I didn't even know how to speak. I still hardly know how to speak, but it's a matter of being comfortable with yourself too. That comparison, that's what I was trying to tell this friend too, that told me that was, God speaks loudly through you in different ways than me. And that's truth. That's just how it is. God speaks loudly in different things than you, or in me in different things, and speaks loudly in you in different things that I can't accomplish, And that's just the real important factor of this. Oh, and there was something from Ephesians. Oh, I remembered it. It was talking about, and I remember bringing this up, and I can't remember where it was. I think it was Ephesians. It had to have been somewhere in the New Testament or somewhere. I don't remember. It was talking about the potter should not talk about the potter. Or no, the potter. No. The pottery. Sorry. The pottery should not talk to the, who makes potter? Who makes pottery? I don't know whatever they call that. The maker. I'll just say the maker. The pottery shouldn't complain to the maker about how they made it, because the person who made the pottery loves that. They've morphed them in a different way. Some people have a handle on their pottery. Some people don't. You may be a vase that holds a flower for life. Just because you don't pour things for other people doesn't mean you're not giving life to something else, I think that's a big thing to hit for some people, is that sometimes maybe God's made you a vase and you're trying to be like a teapot or something and try to pour in something else. But in reality, God's made you a vase to give life to a flower, I guess that's just some kind of, that's some kind of like poetic thing I guess I was thinking of right there. But I don't know. That was a big tangent thing. But there's some scripture that says this, that talks about the pottery and the master who makes the pottery. And I can't remember where it is. I would love to share it right now. I was thinking about it the entire time before stream, and I don't even remember what it is. And it kind of stinks. I might be able to look it up real quick. Let me look at what you said real quick, It's in Isaiah. Okay, cool. Let me look at Isaiah. I'll look at what you said real quick as well, Rooster. You said there are times where there were times even Jesus had enough of people's nonsense. Oh yeah, definitely. There's definitely a time of that, Let's see. If he can get fed up, well, what makes us think that we're always going to keep a lid on it. Don't degrade yourself. It's called being a human. Well, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Here's the thing, right? Now, granted, now just I will say just because Jesus went flipping tables doesn't mean we should always go flipping tables. You know, sometimes. I guess yeah, I think it depends solely on the situation. But I do agree. Don't degrade yourself, you know, especially if you're around people. One thing I'll say this is that sometimes it's good to make a decision to leave, right? Depending on the situations that you can take, right? Obviously, you know, I don't think anyone should take things to the extreme, but I do agree. It's normal to be mad, and it's normal to be able to what do you call it? To be upset, you know, depending on the situation. Let's see. Well, it's normal to be upset about a lot of things. Hi there, Horizon. How you doing today, homie? Let's see. And also enjoy your lurk as well, homie. We're talking about comparison today. Okay, you said Isaiah. Okay, I need to find out what Isaiah that is real quick. All right, let me do that. Okay, Isaiah about pottery. Let me see. Oh, yes, this is it. Cool. Thank you. This is what I want to talk about. This is fire. I like this. Hold on. We're gonna go ESV because that's kind of rad. All right, thank you though. Thank you. Gotta walk back home, man. Just wanted to pop in and say when I saw you were okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Rooster. Thank you, homie. I hope your walk home goes really rad. Sorry about your AC stuff, by the way, homie. I'll gladly pray for you if you have one too. I can because we're gonna get into a prayer time super soon as well. Let me see. Hold on a second. I gotta wash my mouth. Okay. Yes, this is it. This is perfect. All right. So thank you, Natrix. I appreciate this. All right. So basically, what this is talking about, this is Isaiah. This is an Isaiah thing about like how we are as people, right? I think this is so cool, and this is something I want to talk about before we get into like Elden Ring and stuff, and we go to pray and stuff. But this is shower, O heavens, from above, and let the clouds rain down righteousness. Let the earth open, that salvation and righteousness may bear fruit. Let the earth cause them both to sprout. I, the Lord, have created it. Woe to him who strives with himself, who formed him, a pot among earthen pots. Does the clay say to him who forms it, "What are you making?" Or your work has no handles? Yeah, I like that. That's what I was thinking of. Woe to him who says to a father, "Why are you begetting?" Or to a woman, "With what are you in labor?" So what this is saying is, you know, why are you? It's like, don't ask. Or it's more of like I feel like this falls into comparison of like, you know, why am I not like this? Why am I not like this? Right? You know, this is like asking God, why am I not like this? And in all reality, God's answer back would probably be like, because you're not meant to be that. In all reality. Now, I don't know how God would answer. He'd probably answer in a very more profound way than I did. But like in all reality, though, to be honest, it's because you're not supposed to be like that, you know? Comparison can really make you feel like you're something else when you're not, right? Sorry, my voice cracked. And it's just something that is really important to look out for in our lives. We can even have small comparisons. You know, believe it or not, what we speak over our lives is powerful, yes, but what's in here is also powerful. So it could be a glance. It could literally be a glance and be like, man, I could have that and I would be a happier life, or be in a happier life. And in reality, that's not the case. You know, we all have different things in our lives. Excuse me. And that's just the reality of things, though. So I encourage you, anybody who is just here listening or just listening in the VOD, or if I post this video on YouTube, I know I talked quite a while here. I encourage you to try to see your mindset. Look at the way you're thinking about things when it comes to comparing to other people, things that you have, or other people's lifestyles, to kind of dial that back and realize that not only are other people doing the same thing possibly and also struggling with other things that you may not be struggling with, but it's better on your mentality and your heart and you moving forward as a person to not compare yourself like that, you know? And I think that's really important to just kind of just get that mindset. So I highly encourage that. No, it's not going to happen easy overnight. I promise. I know it's not going to happen overnight. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a better thing to start. You know, it's really hard to start, but it's very cool, or it's very good to start in your life, to start a routine of fixing your mind, you know, and making sure your mind is okay, making sure your mind is in a better spot, not being able to have to fall into comparison a lot. You know what I mean? Let's see. Potentially Elden Ring afterward. Yes, you're right. There's potentially Elden Ring afterwards. Hi there, Rich. How you doing today, homie? And so basically what I was talking about is, oh, he got Fanta added. Oh, crud. Basically what I'm talking about is, well, I guess, should I wait for Rich? I'm going to wait for Rich. But I promise I'll stop sounding like a broken record soon. But I think that's all I had to talk about for the most part for it. But, hold on. We're going to wait for the homie Rich. To be able to get out of his Fanta ad. That stinks. Also, if there is an ad, though, then I can wait a bit, though. Because I feel bad for when I'm talking about something and then an ad pops up on homies and then they're like, then they ruin the talk and and I'm like, no, it's like, I hate it when ads do that, when they're like, when you're in the middle of something good and then like, hey, here's an ad for you right there, So hi there, Rich. Welcome back. What do you call it? Hi there, Ray. How you doing today, homies? Dude, we're talking about comparison today for all of you homies who just came in, kind of the deal. And how it really ruins our lifestyle, And I'll even say this too, because a lot of times some people think that, comparison is me talking about this on a God talk, right? Some people are probably like, oh snap, this comparison, right? This comparison talk you're talking about, Derpy, is only for Christians. But in reality, it's not, I think in general within life, if you compare yourself with other people, you're just not going to have a very happy life because you feel like these things that other people have are going to make you better. And in reality, they aren't. It's just depending on how you build your character as well. So honestly, this is like a full way street. This will help anybody in life. I feel like this is a dual subject, well, yes, I agree. That, what do you call it? That comparing yourselves in a Christian aspect definitely is very important to watch out for. I feel like it's just as important for anybody who isn't one, or who is struggling with comparison in their lives, that was Natrix who said that, by the way, Julian. That was Natrix. I remember that. She said actually, I don't know if she quoted something, but I remember Natrix saying that, in the chat. Let's see, how are y'all tonight? I'm doing Mighty Majestic, Mr. Rich. We actually might be playing some Elden Ring in a little bit. It's going to be really cool. Let's see. That's why subbing is available. You're right, but don't worry. Yeah. Thank you for saying JK not mandatory. I agree though. That is a good solution. However, it's also one that requires money. I wish I could do it for full free, what do you call it? Also, I am lurking. Do not perceive. That's okay, homie. You're good. Also, hi there, Ranger. How you doing today, homie? But yeah, I just wanted to talk about comparisons. Since there are all these homies coming up, I kind of really want to talk about comparison a bit more, just because I feel like it's an important, and I'm not saying that you got to fix this stuff overnight, homies. But in reality, right, it's just something that I think is good to look out for, regardless of what you're going through, Also, hi, Ray. How you doing today as well, homie? I'm doing Mighty Majestic. It's something to look out for, about comparison. Some people used it as an excuse to bring people down. Yeah, and that's another thing too, Comparison can be used in a lot of bad ways. And there's only very, very, like I said, the little nickel thing right here. Yeah, I'm not gotching you. I promise. It's not a gotcha. But it might be now because you're thinking about it. But this is the size of comparison for, things that are good is very small. Comparison is a big thing that can be used in very wrong ways. And yeah, so I got you. Getting got by Derpy. You're right. I didn't mean to. I feel bad doing that, but it's an example, but it's a good example though. In my bit rate. Oh snap! Is my bit rate dying again? Or no? Is the bit rate dropping? Bro, I'm about to freak out. Okay, better got you. I was like, dude, I hate my bit rate. But yeah, so I think that's all I have to talk about. In all honesty, if y'all have anything to share, now you don't have to open up about this. But I wanted to just talk about if y'all have anything that y'all would like to share on comparison, is there some things in your life that you've compared yourself with? And you don't have to answer this in chat. I would love to talk about it if you answer it in chat, but I want to ask you these questions. So you can think, like, not saying you can't think, but you can think about those situations and how to better improve them within your life. A good question I feel like is to ask is, when's the last time you've compared yourself with somebody? For me, when I've compared myself to somebody, is oftentimes I look at some of my friends who are successful, and I'll look at, and this is just me being honest, I'll look at that and I think maybe I'm doing something wrong, and I might be, but however, I can't let that comparison hit me, because there's a lot of different things in our lives that equate to different situations that go within our lives. But for me, in my all honesty here, is I've compared myself with some friends that I have that are successful, that are doing what I want to do, and sometimes, it can create the emotion of, man, I'm doing something wrong, or man, I'm never going to get up to that. And, it's very important to make sure you're not doing that to yourself. So I encourage that you ask that question to yourself. When's the last time you compared? Another question is this, which, I don't want to like throw a lot of questions at you and you'd be like, oh, different things to think about. But another question is, how are you going to stop comparing yourself? What are you going to do to dial back on that? I'm not saying that like you're going to magically get it done overnight, but what will you do when that kind of thought process, hits you? What's going to happen, when comparison comes its way, right? Because I feel like we all can fall into that. It's kind of like depression and all these different things. At some point in your life, you're going to experience something like that, right? I've experienced a couple of comparison atmospheres in my life. So what will you do in your life, to stop comparison or to dial back from it, to help your mind get fixated off of comparing yourself to other people, or to things in life. You can compare yourself to a dog, I guess. I don't know why you'd compare yourself to a dog, but maybe this dog's just living life better than you. I don't know. But in reality, it's usually it's people. I think it's people that we compare ourselves, Let's see. I've been lurking for some time, and honestly, it's so true. We compare our own strength with our weaknesses. Yeah. And sometimes comparing our strength with others doesn't work because it doesn't work either. Yeah, I got you. Most of the time, people are raised and built different. Yeah, every person is unique. No point of comparison. Exactly. We are all raised in different ways. We all come from different walks of life. And I think that's very important to know that, that we all have differences and we want to compare our weaknesses to strengths. But in reality is sometimes when people have certain strengths, it comes with a different bit of backlash too. Sometimes people have certain strengths in their lives because of something bad that's happened to them, So in all reality, sometimes the strengths we wish for are probably some strengths we probably are better off not having in our lives. And so I think it's really important to know that too, is that like we all have different walks of life. So I really like that. And I'll even say this too, right? I know this is a little bit extra and it's not really on the comparison chart, but I think this is really important too. Be honest about your weaknesses. It's very easy to be honest about your strength, right? Whether you're good at something, really good at something. I used to be good at the saxophone. I could have been like, I'm really good at playing the saxophone, homies. Stuff like that, right? It's very easy to say what you're good at. I can say, hey, I'm good at talking. I'm a lot better at talking than I used to be. I'm a very energetic, high energy person sometimes. I can say all these things that are really nice and flattering about myself. What good is that going to do any of y'all? In all honesty, if I were to talk about all my strengths in my life, it wouldn't do you guys any good. Now, granted, you'd be like, oh, Derpy's a cool guy. He's cooler than I thought he was. He's got these cool things about him. But in reality, me having strengths does not help you. I mean, it helps. It may fill some gaps for you. But in all reality is the weaknesses are what's going to help people. What are you weak at? Share your weaknesses. To be honest with you guys, I overthink constantly. I am a constant overthinker. I cannot usually get my thought process right. I usually mess up a lot. As you could tell today, I've probably been a broken record all day today, which I'm not trying to hate on myself for. I overthink a lot. I worry quite often, and I struggle with a lot of thought processes, and I struggle with temptations a lot in my life, and that's just full on honesty, that's just something I deal with. And in reality is the more comfortable you are sharing your weaknesses, that is something that's going to help people move forward within their lives. Because you never know, someone will be quicker to compare with you on a weakness than they will on a strength. Because a strength, they'll compare Okay, I got in a good way anyway, because I shouldn't even say compare. A weakness, I feel, ties people together faster than a strength. That's just me. You know, people want to know that they're talking to humans, not people that are full on strength and blah, 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 you know, like perfect people, stuff like that, you know. Sorry, I missed a few things. That was my bad. I just wanted to talk about that and just say on that subject of strengths and weaknesses, I feel it's better to share. It's okay to share strengths like through your actions, but to be honest about your weaknesses, because that's going to help connect other people and say, you know what, I struggle with this too. I'm glad to know that there's somebody else struggling with, you know? See, sometimes we be comparing ourselves and not even notice. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. I feel like it's one of our default settings. Amen. I agree with that. Yeah. That we need to learn to control through Jesus. Yeah, I agree with that. It's totally understandable. Like our minds have this like automatic, you know, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I did that noise. Don't hate me. But our minds have this automatic thing where we will sit there and we'll think something automatic, especially if your mind is so used to it. It takes a while to kind of tear that off, but it's easy to compare yourself, especially when you're like young and, you know, all these other people have different things that you'd have. And you're like, oh snap, you know, this is cool that they have this and stuff like that. But it's something you have to catch. It's something you have to catch and be like, all right, we need to dial this back. You know, we got to dial this back. And I think that's a really cool, you know, spend some time in prayer about it, you know, get your mind off of it. It's very important. What we can think is how we can work our strengths and make them work to leave our mark. And even help those better than ours because we don't know. We can make others shine and they can help us succeed. Yeah, exactly. I think that's very important too. It's like, yeah, you can definitely make others shine with your strengths. Definitely. Your strengths are very important and God made you a certain way because God's going to make you fill some gaps that other people can't fill. And I think that's really cool. That's such an awesome thing to think about. And I like that too. Your strengths are going to help other people shine and their strengths are going to help you shine, you know, because you have weaknesses, right? I have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. We all have strengths. And it's really cool to see that, like, we're like this weird tree branch. That's really cool. Or a tree stump. Because, like, you know, that's how the life is created within, like, the body of the church or just people in general is that when we have these friends, we get this knitness, I guess is the best way I could say. We're like a net. We're like intertwined with these different, I don't know what I'm doing. We're like intertwined in a way, and it's really cool, and it just helps people shine. That's why I also think this is cool in Proverbs. Proverbs says, hold on, I got it right here. It's actually, I got an NIV with the ribbon bookmark, and it's a Bible case. Don't compare your Bibles, by the way, all right? But this is my Bible. This is one of my Bibles. I have two of them. I have a Bible case. This is my NIVs in here with the ribbon bookmark. But it says right here, I don't know if you can see that. I don't actually know if you can. It says, as iron sharpens iron, a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. And that's Proverbs 27:17, which that's true. Iron sharpens iron. So in reality is, you know, being around people who kind of fill those weaknesses for you, makes you shine brighter in a way, you know, iron sharpens iron. You should get sharpened from it. And it's really important. So I really like that. That's pretty cool. I like that. Thank you for sharing that too, as well. I appreciate y'all sharing stuff. I think that's all I have to say about, what do you call it? Comparison, in all honesty. But what do you call it? We're all like pieces of a puzzle. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, not everybody can be an end piece, you know, let's be real, right? Some people like end pieces. Some people have more connections than an end piece. I think this is really cool. This is going to be wild. All right. I don't know. Thank you for saying this, but it's like sent a surge of energy through my brain. So, you know, there's like 4 corner end pieces, right? Sometimes an end piece might look at a middle piece and notice, man, you know, that middle piece has 4 connections to other people, but in reality, I'm an end piece. I only have 2 connections. God's still using you to make a beautiful portrait out of that, regardless of what it is. And I think that's really cool. Regardless how many connections you have as a person, too, God's still working through you. So I thought that was really cool. Hey, that was some teamwork right there. I like that. That was really cool. Thank you, Natrix. I appreciate it. But yeah, in all reality, though, that's what it is, though. You know, regardless of your connection or your upbringing in your life, you know, God still uses you to create this really cool painting within your life, you know, even if you're a corner piece, or it doesn't even have to be it doesn't have to be a corner piece or an end piece. Let's be real, right? Sometimes the end pieces, on the side here, we're going to use this background as a puzzle piece thing, right? So you're right here, right? You're right here, right? You're right here. You are connected to up here, here, and here, right? But if you're an end piece that's down here, you're only connected to two things at the bottom. I think. I don't actually know, but whatever. Took that metaphor to a whole nother level. Thank you. That happened instantly. It's really cool. What do you call it? So I appreciate it. That's a cool thing. All right, that's all I gotta say. I was trying to make a connection, but it really didn't work right there. But yeah, with what I said earlier, it works. But yeah, that's the case though. In all reality, it's a big comparison thing, right? Oftentimes, if the fire here compares itself, right? Let's just take the fire, Hey, yo, how's your day going? I'm doing very good. I'm gonna call you Vix. I think it's pretty cool. How you doing today, Vix? I'm doing really well today, actually. We could say the fire here. The fire looks beautiful and awesome, but just as beautiful as the scenery up here is just as beautiful as this fire looks, right? There's nothing is different from them. They both convey a beautiful picture, and oftentimes I feel people who are on the fire can compare themselves with this beautiful horizon, right? And it's just wild stuff. You both still look majestic. It's just the comparison makes you see yourself as something different. And I think that's really cool. All right, I guess that's all I got. That's all I can say. That's all I can say right there. But thank y'all. What are you talking about? I am talking about comparison. We're actually almost done talking about comparison, but we're talking about how comparison affects our lives, right? How we compare ourselves to other people. Oftentimes, we can compare ourselves to other people. Oh, amen. I like that too. They look better together. Exactly. Without the horizon back here, this flame wouldn't look as good. I like that. That's really cool. Amen. I like that. And that's how it is. But no, what I was talking about is comparison, right? So oftentimes in our lives, we feel, we might feel comparison towards other people. We might feel like, oh, this person has something that I don't have, so therefore they're living a better life than me. And that's couldn't be farther from the case. You know what I mean? Comparing is a part of human nature. Exactly. And that's why it's also bad. I'm not trying to say it's like, you're gonna burn for comparing, but comparison to a bad level is bad, So even though it is a part of human nature, when you compare yourself to other people, that's where the problem is, because in reality, we all have different things, right? We all have different things about ourselves. So it is definitely a part of human nature. You're definitely not wrong about that, See, I compare myself to others by height works well for me. Okay, yeah, well, height, yeah. If it's by height, sure. Yeah, I got you. Also, hi, Matt Adabs. How you doing today? But yeah, I can see that. Comparing in that aspect is okay. I guess it's more of the comparison of, people have different things that I have, right? And that's the kind of comparison that's bad. You know what I mean? With the age of apps like TikTok and Insta, it's definitely probability with the youth. Yeah, I mean, I understand. Yeah, younger people, I would say. I'm classified as a younger person. Listen, all right, I'm only 24, but people within further back than me, I guess you could say, is probably struggle with this highly. They see a lot of people with a bunch of views on TikTok, and they're like, hey, I want to be like that. That's famous. But in reality is you can be happy without that, And so that's just kind of what we were talking about today. It's just like, just comparing ourselves and how we are in life, and to improve ourselves, basically. It takes time, but in reality is you got to learn to accept yourself first. I think that's one of the big things too, is accept your faults and strengths that you have within yourself, and know that, hey, you listen, I'm just made in a beautiful image, right? Or I have these things about me that other people might like about me. People like this grass and they like this fire. There's different things about it, and I think that's just a really cool thing to just think about, and to be able to kind of get our minds off of comparing so much, because it's a part of human nature. And the more and more we pry off of that, the more and more it'll be easier to live a life of without comparing to other people. So I think that's all I have to say, though. In all honesty, to be real with you, homie. So we just kind of got just done finished up talking about it. It's also been 2 hours, so I gotta breathe. But yeah, your boy's been talking for like 2 hours. So cool background. Thank you. I found it on unsplash.com. It's actually a really cool place to find free 4K images. I plan to find a moving background at some point.